just going to say a few words about silence. And as it was said here, I once walked alone to the South Pole for 50 days and nights into the midnight sun, into this vast white nothingness, Antarctica. And what's interesting when you are by yourself with no radio contact, the last thing I did on this expedition was, before I started, was to take a radio I had been forced to bring by my sponsors. I took the batteries out, left them in the plane. So when I was starting to walk to the South Pole as the first ever alone, I didn't have any communication. And when you start to walk, you feel that everything is white and everything is flat all the way out to the horizon. But as the days and weeks pass by, you start to see it's not totally flat after all. It's kind of small structures on the ice and the snow. And you also start to see more and more colors as the days pass by. So a little bit reddish, bluish, yellowish, greenish appearing on around you. And then, of course, you can think, like, is Antarctica changing? But of course, Antarctica remained the same, and I was the one who was changing in this silence. And also, you're becoming more and more a part of the nature. So in the sense that your body doesn't stop by your skin or your fingertips, we kind of extend it into the environment, and you can send some ideas out again. I get other thoughts back. So this trip learned me a great deal about the importance of having some silence in our lives. And later, I started this book publishing business, and I got 3 kids, I got 3 teenage daughters, and my life was all about noise for a while.
But let's do some magic. So because probably not many of us will be able to travel to the North Pole. Take us there for a moment.
I think,
take us there. What do you feel? What do you smell? Your fingers are freezing.
I think,
the bear is coming.
Yeah, I was attacked by a polar bear walking to the North Pole with a friend. And of course, it's like in business, like you think too. It's if you face a big threat like we did, suddenly a polar bear is approaching you. And of course, up close to the North Pole is nothing to eat but expedition members. So it was a matter about who's having who for dinner. And of course, then you have to be very quick. You have to stay very cool. You grab your gun, and my friend Børge Avsland, he wanted to take a photo. So he grabbed his camera, took a photo between me and the bear posing like this. And soon after, the bear approached us. And unfortunately, we hit the bear in the chest. So it's always something which is dangerous, but I think all in all, I'm thinking more about the pleasant moments, and I'm thinking about the silence. And of course, I think, listening...
sorry to interrupt you, but what were you thinking, in the particular moment that bear was approaching? What have you learned about yourself? What did bear learn?
What's beautiful with such moments is that you're very much in the present, because I think the problem in daily life, we're thinking too much. We're too much available, and when you think about the past, or you're thinking about the future. But the great thing, when something is actually happening, you're just experiencing the moment. So you're not thinking at all, you're just kind of doing the right things. And that's something I really miss in my daily life.
And you shot the bear. You did the right thing because it was the only possible option.
Yeah, I didn't want to shoot a bear, but the other option was to be eaten by the bear. So then I prefer to eat the bear myself. But then again, just an interesting thing when I see you here now today in the light, I think we should try to do a little experiment. Everybody. I think everybody should look up from their smartphones, maybe put the smartphones down, and then we try to have 1 minute of silence. Are you in for it? And we start in 10 seconds, so please put down your phone. Don't say anything. I'm trying to listen to the silence for 1 minute. Starting 1, 2, 3. That was 1 minute.
Really? What were you thinking during this minute?
What I was thinking that, it's the interesting thing, I think, with silence in general is that it's quite often uncomfortable. It's different. And it doesn't exist in the sense that when we're sitting here being quiet, there's always some noises around us. But I think, in terms of be a creative human being, you need silence. And when I wrote my book on silence, and for instance, I talked with Elon Musk, the guy who's behind SpaceX and Tesla. Of course, he talks all the time, he's texting all the time, he's very active. But if you're going to come up with bright ideas in your life, but also in business, you absolutely need silence. And the reason is because whenever you are connected, when you're living through other people, and that's all about noise. And I think about noise, I'm thinking about, of course, sounds, but also all kinds of distractions you get from your phone, all the kind of expectations you will have on social media, and about pollution, man-made light, all this is noise. And of course, most of you people sitting here today, you will spend maybe 4 hours every day doing social media. You will live for around 84 years, which again means that you will spend 13 years of your lives, day and night, on social media. And then you will see some TV series in addition to it. And no wonder many of you will think about yourself as restless, lonely, sad, and sometimes depressed. Because all this is about forgetting yourself, running away from yourself, while silence is very much about connecting to yourself, it's about getting to know yourself, and it's about unlock new keys to understand the world. And then again, back to Elon. His thing is, he has these silent moments. When you talk to him, suddenly he kind of disappears, and then he's doing his own thinking. And he comes up with these fantastic ideas about how to revolutionize the car industry, how to revolutionize the energy industry, and how to revolutionize traveling into space. And all this comes up in peace, in silence.
Beside Elon Musk, you also mentioned Marina Abramovic. She also created art out of silence in a way. And she told you that in the desert she felt chaos because there was so much noise in her head and so much peacefulness around her. So it's not enough to shut out the outer world. We have to know how to tame or shut up our own thoughts.
Exactly, because you can't wait for silence to come to you. You have to invent your own silence. And the best silence in the world is the silence which is inside yourself. And the interesting thing with Marina Abramovic, the artist, she was dreaming about getting into the desert. She was dreaming about having silence all around her, and then to contemplate. But of course, when she got into the desert, it was silent, but she had all this noise in her head. And that's also one of the reasons I want you to have, or we all together have 1 minute of silence, because although it's get almost quiet in the room, we still have all this noise in our heads, because we're thinking, and when we're thinking about the past, or we're thinking about the future. And that's what Marina did. She had just sitting there in peace, but thinking all the time. And what we actually have to do sometimes in silence, when we get through that, we need to stop thinking, and we need to start to experiencing.
About her experiment or performance in New York MoMA, she was sitting there and staring in the eyes of visitors. How many visitors? I have this data here. Yes, thousands of them. Yeah. So it seems the same experiment that you are describing in your book. That psychologist who said that he can make two complete strangers to fall in love just by staring into each other's eyes. So have you tried this experiment?
This was an experiment from the 1960s, which was, how to fall in love. What does it take to fall in love? And they just figure out that if you ask the following 32 questions to a person that has kind of the kind of person you could fall in love with, a person you never met before. And she asks the questions, and he asks the questions back. And then if you finish afterwards with looking into each other's eyes for 5 minutes without doing anything else, just looking straight into the eyes, you would fall in love. And I have tried it, and it worked.
And it worked, but can you explain it to us? How does it work? Because Marina Abramovic staring in the eyes of a complete stranger, there is a certain connection also because of silence, because you stay silent and you're just watching into
it works because, of course,
human being.
Our languages are beautiful, all the words are great, but if you're really going to communicate, you sometimes need to think and communicate beyond words. And then, of course, as everybody knows in marketing or sales and information, whatever, to look into anyone's eyes is really strong. And if you dare to do it without talking, without saying anything, it gets even stronger. And it's complicated because, of course, we prefer noise. We prefer someone speaking. We prefer someone, singing some music, because silence is complicated. And this philosopher Pascal, he wrote in the 1640s, so 350 years ago, he said that a man is not able to sit alone in a room doing nothing for 5 minutes. So instead of doing nothing, he will do something, and that's the beginning of all his problems. And of course, that was 350 years ago, and you see today with the smartphone, we really have a hard time to be present in our own company. And then, and I think that's very sad, because if we keep on doing the same things every day, first of all, life will feel very short. Like people at my age and older, they always complain life is short. And of course, life feels short if you do, repetitive things. But if you if you break free from those patterns, life is long. And of course, life is long. You have this huge possible, beautiful chance to have a rich life.
How did you achieve that? How did you change your thoughts in your head? It was also because of the Norwegian poet Jon Fosse, who told you that silence is almost equal to wonder. And you also wrote in a book that wonder is something, the most sacred things that human actually possess.
I think to wonder and curiosity, I'll just say curiosity, is maybe the most important talent we have. And we are all born explorers. So people ask me, when did you start exploring? And I never start exploring. We're all born that way, in the sense that when I looked at my daughters, before they could walk, they tried to climb. And as soon as they learned how to walk, before they could talk, they walked out of the house, into the world, and started to wonder what's between themselves and the horizon. And soon afterwards, they also want to know what was beyond the horizon. So this spirit of exploration, we all have. And it never goes away. Of course, it's corrupted by parents, family, friends, kindergarten, school. Kind of all wants us, to be more narrow-minded. Because we're born with 360 degrees horizon, and then everybody around us wants us to narrow in. So this spirit, being curious, always asking questions, and always making up your own mind, I think that's how we were born. We're all born to find our own South Poles.
And it's a beautiful sentence at the end of the book, but another question, we still have time. So what is the driving force behind all those achievements? You were dyslexic as a child, but still you achieved, you studied philosophy, law. You are one of the best publishers, authors. You are giving lectures, so it's quite the opposite of dyslexia, right?
Yeah, I think it's, I didn't learn how to pronounce my own name before I was 10 years old. I had a hard time getting to read, to talk, pronounce words, and also to write. And I was quite a bit bullied at school. Many people are more bullied than me, but still, kind of hard.
Bullied, you said, that you were bullied.
Yeah. But the good thing is, if your life is too easy when you grow up, you don't have anything to fight for, or very little. And you don't have any kind of, feeling for kind of revenge or whatever. And of course that, will make you into a slightly duller person. So I think for me, I think it has been a gift that it's kind of, it has been some hardship. Because, that makes you to get up in the morning. And I think, the most important thing being a polar explorer today, as it was 100 years ago, when it's minus 50 degrees centigrade outside a tent, is to get up in the morning. Because it's always more tempting to lay in a sleeping bag and freeze a little bit for 5 minutes or 5 hours than to get out of the sleeping bag and freeze like hell. And it's kind of the same challenge back home in Norway or on this morning, is to get up at the right time every day. And I think that's, for an entrepreneur, you need to start your day by getting up early, just like with a polar explorer.